Who's got the right stuff? That's what we're going to figure out now. We're going to look at some of those young pitchers who rank highly in terms of stuff, talking about that stuff plus metric that Saris first developed and others use. You can find it on Fangraphs. Basically, who can pitch really well, but maybe just haven't had those results yet. These are some future aces. In fact, guys, I think could wind up being the number one pitcher for their respective team this season. Now, in case you're not familiar with Stuff Plus, I'm not going to get into too much detail right here, but basically, this is just measuring the quality of pitches. It's context independent. Doesn't talk about the outcomes, just pitcher in terms of their velocity, their movement, and how effective those pitches should be. So here are 5 relatively young pitchers who could take a leap forward because they've got the stuff. They can have the opportunity now. They just need to fall into place. Would appreciate if you take a second to subscribe, click that button, turn on notifications so you know when we're dropping new content, which is going to be constantly throughout not only the preseason, draft season, and the regular season. All right, so I already know what you might be thinking. And despite appearances, this video is not entirely about Yuri Perez, but we may as well start with him. Yes, he is going to be the number one pick here, guy who could be an ace right here, right now. You want to talk about stuff, there's no argument. He's got it. Besides the obvious fact that he stands 6'8", throws 98 miles per hour. It's pretty intimidating there on the mound. I mean, yeah, that fastball is great. It's hard to hit, but that's only his 3rd most effective pitch, believe it or not. And just in terms of stuff, last year, his slider was actually 6th best among all pitchers with at least 50 innings pitched, and the curveball was 8th best. And again, that fastball was also still way above average, one of the better fastballs. And so this guy seems to have it all in place. The only thing we need is for him to stay healthy. Just please, just don't blow out your arm again. It's already happened. We know that's the risk. We had Tommy John surgery. It's already been recovered from that. He made an appearance late last season. We knew that they were going to kind of baby him. They're probably going to take it somewhat easy with him early in the season. But at the same time, if you can just get at least 150 innings from someone who's super effective, that's better than more bulk from the guy who's just out there eating innings and not getting as many strikeouts and all that. I mean, Yuri Perez is so talented, and that's why Saris in his rankings for fantasy baseball in terms of starting pitchers got him as a top 20 SP right now. And in fact, with the unfortunate news that Spencer Schwellenbach is pretty much done for this season, he's now number 17 on the list. The standard caveat applies that for a pitcher who's not on a great team and maybe won't be out there 6 innings or more on a lot of occasions, you're going to be limited in terms of wins and to some extent maybe quality starts as well. So that's the knock for fantasy, but man, the strikeout rate should be excellent and those ratios could be excellent too. Yuri Perez also has a pretty nice park factor going for him. Miami known to be more of a pitcher's park. And so, I mean, everything else is in place for him as long as he just please stay healthy. Right now, it's stick in Florida. Got a pitcher in Tampa who's now moving from a minor league park back to the cozy dome, and that should only help Ryan Pepio. Remember, he's a former Dodger prospect, got flipped to the Rays a couple years ago. He's been good, but not great, and we haven't seen, is there a next level here? I think there is, and again, not just the fact that he's moving back to the dome. He's pitched there before, right? This will help, but you know what? This is another pitcher. I feel like there's another gear here to be had. So first, as far as the whole dome thing, so again, Saris again mentioned that last year the second most what they call wind-aided home runs were suffered at that minor league park, Steinbrenner Field, and it just so happens that Ryan Pepio allowed 60% higher home run rate in home games. And this is a big deal for Ryan Pepio specifically because he is more of a fly ball pitcher. That fly ball rate last 3 seasons has hovered around 29%, which is about 5% higher than the MLB average. So this will make an impact. I like Pepio because he's got 2 really strong assets in terms of pitches and that stuff. Like all these pitchers I'm going to discuss, that Stuff Plus model likes him. He's got an excellent changeup. In fact, last year, hitters only hit 200 batting average against it with a 245 WOBA allowed. And his fastball, although he doesn't throw like 98, 99 like a guy like Yuri Perez, but it's still effective and he gets a ton of vertical movement. In fact, the most, because out of all pitchers who threw at least 1,000 pitches of that type last season, number one in terms of induced vertical movement, and that's what you call rise. And this is exactly what you want. Guy who maybe he's not hitting 100 on the radar gun, won't necessarily blow hitters away, but he's got that movement, the shape of that pitch. It is very effective. It works for him. So he's got two really, really good pitches. And that's why now moving back into the Trop Dome should just help Pepio turn from a pretty good pitcher to a really good pitcher. Now, on that same list, in terms of that fastball being very effective, you're going to see my next pick, a guy I was really just kind of like pounding the drum for all last season, Ryan Nelson. Just kept thinking, like, this is it. This guy could break out. And he would look great for a while, and then he wouldn't. And then he was really good, and then they'd take him out of the rotation. It was just so frustrating because there were stretches where he was dominant, but it just didn't all come together. Like, I can't guarantee it's going to happen this year, but it absolutely could because he has literally one of the best fastballs in all of the major leagues. Just in terms of stuff, one of the top 5 fastballs out there. It's pretty impressive considering some of the other arms you're stacking up against. And so it's, again, 96 miles per hour. That's good, but it's not just about the velocity, it's the movement, okay? And that's what he really relies on because he throws that fastball almost 60% of the time. Now, he does have another good pitch. It's that slider. So he does have what we would call a strikeout pitch. He got a 33% whiff rate on the slider. He just didn't use it quite enough. I mean, he uses that fastball to set up everything else, but maybe learning more as far as when to use the slider. And, we need to see that strikeout rate improve. Let's face it, the strikeout rate wasn't exactly what you want to see. The best thing to pair with a rising fastball like he has, a four-seamer, really would be a curve that drops. He does have a curveball. It's pretty good. He's improved in terms of how it's used, and the usage went up a little bit last year. Maybe he needs to up it a little bit more and maybe lower some of that cutter usage. The cutter wasn't quite his most effective pitch. And so maybe tinkering a little bit with that. Hopefully we'll see some improvements this year, but I still really love Ryan Nelson and his stuff. I loved it last year. Looking at the numbers just makes me a believer again. Now, I've already talked about Cade Cavalli on a sleepers list a couple of weeks ago. Talk about him here because let's face it, as of this point right now, it looks like he should be the number one pitcher, the ace of that Washington staff. Partly because Mackenzie Gore is no longer there. And, it's not a very impressive rotation. Don't tell me that Miles Michaelis all of a sudden is going to be their ace. He absolutely should not be. Cade Cavalli should be. Former top prospect. The saga here. He pitched exactly once a couple years ago. Injuries wiped out multiple seasons. It was a long road back. He made 10 starts last year. And, it got a total of 53 innings pitched in the majors. I don't want to judge him too much in terms of the stats. And, there were some ups and some downs late last year, but that's to be expected. They're going to be careful with him. He's still got to kind of get the feel back for all his pitches. He's got good stuff, though. I mean, he really does. One thing we did see last year, a top 10 slider, and that's an important out pitch that any pitcher can use. So although we only saw an 18% strikeout rate, I do believe there's plenty of room to grow there. He also does have a pretty strong fastball at 97 miles per hour. Pair that with the slider, that's a 1-2 punch that'll work. But also, I do like that he is a ground ball pitcher, first and foremost, 55% ground ball rate. And so he doesn't rely on having to punch out hitters. I mean, I'd like a little trade-off here, maybe a couple fewer ground balls and a little more strikeouts. You know what? He'll figure it out, right? Even if he doesn't have an astronomical strikeout rate, as long as he can get hitters out, the ratios will be nice. Sometimes I save my favorite one for last. Clearly, my favorite pick here was the first one, Yuri Perez. This one, this is a little bit of redemption for me personally, and for Reed Detmers. He definitely needs to do some redeeming. I've been hiring Detmers for a couple of years. It's not paid off. Let's put it that way. And in fact, the Angels decided last year, enough starting for you. You're just going to be a bullpen arm, a setup man at that. And you can clearly see why, because in 2024, as a starter, pitched to a 6.70 ERA. Didn't need any more turns in the rotation. But look what happened last year. It worked. Detmers has always had a great pitch mix. He's clearly got stuff. In fact, it's kind of ludicrous. You got like Reed Detmers. You look at the results he's gotten in the majors so far. He's tied with Yuri Perez for one of the highest overall stuff plus ratings at 115. Like, if he's such a good pitcher, why does he look so bad at times? Well, it's complicated, but let's just say that maybe this will kind of fix Detmers. He's figured out maybe in these smaller samples, pitching 1, 2 innings at a time, how to set up hitters a little more effectively, not to put too much pressure on himself. And like he got a great multi-pitch mix. It works. And he's tinkered it a little bit. He abandoned mostly that changeup. He had thrown it 14% of the time back in 2024 and didn't throw it at all last year. Throwing a little bit more of the slider. One thing with Detmers, he can get strikeouts because he is a master at getting hitters to chase. An extremely high chase rate, and that's why he has really high whiff rate as well. He's gotten that ground ball rate up a bit too. That's always encouraging. And strikeouts are there, and all of this sounds great. But here's the one but. It's he throws the ball out of the zone, and sometimes hitters chase, but sometimes they don't, and that leads to a little bit of a walk issue. So not quite double digits, but in the high 9 percentage the last couple of seasons. We want those walks to come down clearly. So if he can just stay in the zone a little bit more often, then maybe it all comes together here. This is obviously a very risky pick, but then again, you look at the Angels, like who is their ace? I don't know if they really have one. Maybe they don't have one at all this season, but Detmers, again, just in terms of arm talent, he's got it. Some of those pitchers, maybe they take that big step forward this year. If so, then definitely want them on your fantasy team. Remember, I already talked about some of my favorite sleepers at the pitcher position. If you haven't checked that video out, it's right here.